Okay, today we are going to be talking about chemical formulas. For us, this teak is 8.5D, and it's all about chemical formulas. So let's first define chemical formulas. Chemical formulas are a way that chemists describe a molecule, and it tells you what elements are in the formula and how many atoms of each element there are. So first I do want to point out that some of these words are our vocabulary words. So of course, chemical formula is a really important word for you to understand. We need to know the word molecule, elements, and atoms. These are some of the really important words that you're going to want to focus on. So I'm going to just start off by giving you some examples of a chemical formula that you might already know. This formula is H2O. We call this water, but this is the chemical formula for water. It's actually the chemical composition of what water is made of. So before we start breaking down any chemical formula, the first thing I want you to always do is underline the elements that you see. Here we have 2 capital letters, so that tells us that there are 2 elements. Next, I want you to square the numbers next to the element. If there's nothing there, you just put an empty square. What these numbers are called are subscripts. And the subscripts tell you the number of atoms of each element. So after you've done that, if you have an empty box here, what I need y'all to understand is that anytime there's no number to the right of the element, that is an understood 1. They wouldn't write the letter O here for oxygen. They wouldn't put that element in this formula if there weren't any oxygen atoms. So since they wrote the O, we know that there has to be at least 1. If there's nothing next to the O, then it is an understood 1. So we would write a little 1 in there so that we know for ourselves. Okay, next we're going to break down what all of this means. So each of these underlined letters are our elements. So in this formula for water, we have 2 elements. Those 2 elements are hydrogen and oxygen. Next, I want you to look at the numbers you boxed. To find the total number of atoms in each of our formulas, all you have to do is add those numbers up. So we have 3 total atoms because we have 2 hydrogen plus 1 oxygen for a total of 3. If we were to break down this formula, we could write the number of atoms underneath. We have 2 H's and we have 1 O. This is a good way to just be able to see it, especially when we get into our longer formulas. So let's try this again. Our next formula we're going to work with is C. Here, let me do it in the bigger marker so we can see it really well. CO, CH, 2. So remember, the first step, we underline our elements. Now we know the C is an element. We know that H is an element. But here we have a 2-letter element. Now remember, it's really important at this step to make sure that if you see a lowercase letter, then that goes with the other letter. So this element here is CO, which is cobalt. If it was a large O, that would be carbon and oxygen. But because it's a short O, then we know that it goes with the letter before it. So this is actually one element, cobalt. Next, we square the numbers next to our elements. Remember, if there isn't one, we put a square, we write in a 1. So here we have 1, 2, 3 elements. 3 elements. And those elements are, like I said, cobalt. And if you don't know what element it is, you can look at your periodic table. Just find the chemical symbol, CO, and you would find it's cobalt. So we have cobalt, carbon, and hydrogen. Now, we would have to add these together, and we have 4 total atoms. We have 1 cobalt plus 1 carbon plus 2 hydrogen. 1 plus 1 plus 2 gives us 4. Easy enough? Now we could break this one down as well, and we could write the number of atoms underneath each one. We have 1 cobalt, we have 1 carbon, and we have 2 hydrogen. So this is an easier way to look. You could count them here, 1 plus 1 plus 2. Let's do one more quick example. Let's do C6H12O6. This formula right here is actually the formula for sugar. C6H12O6. Remember, step 1, underline our elements. CHO, 3 elements. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Next, we need to square the numbers next to our elements. So we have a 6, a 12, and a 6. If we were to add those together, we would get 24 total atoms. And we can break that down here by writing them out. We have carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we have quite a few hydrogens, so I'm just going to do that really fast for you. Twelve hydrogens. And then we have 6 oxygens. I'm trying to pick a color here. Here we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, if you're more of a visual learner, you could easily just count all of these, or you could just add them together. We have 6 C's plus 12 H's plus 6 O's. So if you add that together, you get 24 total atoms. This is a really quick and easy way to count the number of atoms and elements inside of your chemical formula. In our next lesson, we're going to make them a little more complicated, where you'll see something like and we'll actually have to start talking about distributive properties, but we'll save that for our next lesson. If you aren't understanding this, feel free to ask questions or start the video over and try again.